back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. If you're joining me now, then SuperCoach has opened officially for reals, for keeps, and I've pre-recorded this video with the team picker, so it won't look like this anymore. We're going to have, I think, a bunch of updates, hopefully to the visuals as well, that'll look much nicer than what's on the screen here. But I know there are many people that, with SuperCoach going live for everyone, are going to be making their first teams and maybe looking for ideas, templates, suggestions, things to copy. So I thought this is as good a time as any to do a bit of a quick update for where my team is at and talk through some of the suggestions and some of the alternative players that I like but can't currently in my team. So that'll be the video. We'll go through it all pretty quickly, not mucking around. You can see the whole team, so if you just want to look at it and jump out, by all means. But we'll jump into it, and I've definitely started to be bitten by a bit of the mid-price madness. I'm aware of that at this point in the season. The preseason reports start coming out. Everyone sounds like they're tearing down the track, and these guys that have got lots of injury history is all going well so far, and makes you want to pick all of them. But unfortunately, we can't, and I think a lot will cross themselves out as we go. But let's just jump into it. So in defense, I've obviously done that 1.5 hour defense masterclass video. If you want to check that out, learn a little bit more about the defenders. The premiums I was leading to in that were both Stewart and Dawson, which I've got in the team. I may cut one of them. None of the others that are premium level really interest me that much. Maybe Sicily, if I was to pick the third after this. Sinclair is a bit of a no for me at the moment, and Doherty is kind of interesting with the midfield talk, but lower down the consideration list for now. And then Dacos was someone I was going to rule out, but it sounds like from trading so far, he's still off half back taking kick-ins, but then moving up into the midfield. This sounds like an all right role. So I think I might be willing to roll the dice on Dacos. But if I wasn't to be selecting someone at the position I was going down, I think looking at players like Yo and Bose both make a lot of sense. The other three that I've got on the field at the moment are Goda, Ginby, and McKenna. So Goda, a second-year player, scored well in his one game he played last year, which is why he's got the elevated price. But sounds like he's had a great preseason, and he looks likely at the moment to lock down a half-back spot in North's best 22, which should mean good things at his price. Ginby sounds like he's doing midfield half-back rotations with Yo at the moment. And once again, there's been impressing onlookers, so definitely one that we can look at and consider. And then McKenna, as we all know, has had pretty good scoring history in the past. He's best 22 at the line. So yeah, these are probably a good mix of job security and scoring potential at the moment. And then on the bench, I mean, it's rookies, it doesn't really matter. But Chesser is one that I think is a really good placeholder for now. Just second year, was a first round draft pick last year, is apparently fit, or at least getting back to full fitness, and should be getting games into him this year. The only other one that I was looking at and definitely still considering is Caulfield. The pictures of him looks good, despite the fact that he had some problems with his hamstrings at the end just before Christmas last year. But 208k is definitely one you can consider. I know other people are going to be looking at players like Liam Jones, and that's like fine as well if you really don't like any of these other ones. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with defense now. In the midfield, I'm probably not starting any of the top price guys. I think Turk Miller is the first one to entertain. So yeah, I'm looking for value in my midfielders at the moment. These 5 are the ones that I see that are most likely to outperform their score, while also giving me some good captain options. If I was to move any of these out, it's probably Steele at the moment, who's been a little bit off and on with his training, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but a little bit of a worry. I'm putting in someone like Jack McRae, who I originally wasn't that keen on, but Bailey Smith is not in full training, and who else is another midfielder that they've got that's struggling to get on the park at the moment? And it's like someone important. I don't know why it's not coming to me. And then, like, yeah. So as that name comes to me, you've also Treloar's the one. So yeah, both Treloar and Bailey Smith aren't in full training at the moment, and then Dunkley's gone. So while I was a little bit concerned that McRae might get pushed more outside if Treloar and Bailey Smith have got interrupted preseasons, I think it's probably a good thing for McRae when it comes to CBAs and being able to get in the gut. So I like that. Green and Mitchell, if I get cold feet on one of these, like I've got, I don't know, 50k here. I could move around and play with some other things, but as of right now, they'll stay in there. LDU is the other one you could consider. But yeah, really, there's like, and Noah Anderson, I think, is a reasonable choice as well if you're looking at some of these cheaper mids. Probably not on Josh Kelly. Darcy Parish has been a little bit too interrupted so far. Walsh is gone. Cripps is interesting with Walsh out. He definitely has some good splits without him. But yeah, that's kind of the top end of the midfielders. Hopper, I think, is like a really obvious pick that everyone should probably have for now. Sheed has been getting a little bit of talk as a mid-pricer. He has to outdo his previous best by a fair bit to be worth it, so I'm not sure if he's someone I'm going to seriously consider. And then Warple is one that has done much better than this in the past and definitely could get the opportunity to go back. I'm just a little bit worried with how good he was last year, whether or not he's actually going to be given that opportunity or whether others are going to go past him pretty quickly. But those are the other two you could be looking at. I've got Ashcroft in here as a placeholder, but to be honest, I'm not sure if he's going to get a good enough role for him to be worth 200k. So we'll just see. We'll wait and see if I end up keeping him here, if I move him down to someone else. But I mean, Sardis is already injured and out for like 12 weeks or something like that. I think Wardlaw might be eased in. Humphrey is probably not going to return good money on that price. Clark may not get games early. Mackenzie should, but it may not be as a midfielder. So it's just the problem is like beyond Ashcroft, there's not a lot of really good options here. Jack Bytel's actually one that's getting talked up a lot, so he's a watch. Will Phillips is getting talked up a lot by North Track watchers. He's in his third year now, held back by, I want to say it's like chronic fatigue or something like that last year. But yeah, he should be a really solid option at this price point. And then rookies here are just placeholders. We'll see what pops out. In the rucks, yeah, I mean, it's the ones I've really only looked at are English, Cameron, a little bit of Darcy, a little bit of interest there, and Rowan Marshall. They're probably the four at the moment. I think cheaper ones like Draper unlikely to break out. Meek I would have loved as an option, but he's both got an elevated price tag, and I think they play probably Reeves alongside him as well. Cherry still has Goldstein to contend with, so he's probably not realistically an option. And then Grundy and Gawn. I mean, if Grundy was number one ruck and Gawn re-injured or his hamstring kept him out longer than what you thought, then like I guess you could look at Grundy. But the reality is with both of them in the side, it's probably not ideal. Wits is probably priced a little bit too much. I think it's unlikely he repeats his 110 from last year. So yeah, I mean, Rucks I think are pretty tricky at the moment, and we'll wait and see how the preseason goes. But the thing I like about Cameron is that you can move him forward, and then kind of wait and see on who the other good ruck is, assuming English is locked in for one of them. So I can kind of move Cameron forward and then upgrade to another ruck at the right time. In the forwards here, so Dunkley, Taranto, and then Rosie are probably the three big ones. And if I was to say put Bose down back, then Dacos would turn into someone like Rosie. That'd be a really easy swap. But yeah, those are the good ones. I like Butters as well, and I don't even think you can necessarily go wrong with Cogs. But given some of his durability history, although it's a bit rich saying with Rosie and Butters floating around. But yeah, like Cogs I think could be a reasonable option as well, and maybe a bit of a point of difference on what some of the others have picked. Himmelberg, unfortunately, sounds like he's playing forward, and Moore, I think, will end up playing too much forward to be a pick as well, which is unfortunate because I really liked both of them as options coming into the season. For the mid prices, there is a lot that is happening at this point. Cunnington, I wouldn't bother with for now. I think a fair bit would have to change for him to be considering. But yeah, there's lots down at this 200, 300 range and cheaper. Fife was one I was originally quite keen on, but it does sound, to my surprise, much to my surprise, he's going to play more forward and not get a lot of mid-time, which means it's pretty hard to pick him as an option, even though he may actually end up being okay if he only gets 20, 30% CBAs. But I don't think he's getting any in training at the moment, which is kind of crazy. Wayne Miller is someone that's actually being talked about again. He's very injury prone, but he might be moving back to halfback where he has shown he can score well in the past. He'd also get DPP around 6. So 320k, he could potentially be a very good option. In the team, we've got McDonald and Flanders already. And Flanders finished the back end of last year in the seconds very well when it comes to scoring. like it was like 120s or something like that. So he could kind of come as like the fourth midfielder for the Gold Coast Suns and potentially do quite all right. And then C-Mac, we saw a little bit last year with him performing really well on the midfield. He's also got great junior numbers as a midfielder. So with Titch and Amira both leaving the side, CBA's up for grabs. It could be Warple, it could be someone like C-Mac, it could be about 2 or 3 others as well that get them. But if C-Mac looks like he's one of the ones that gets them, then yeah, he could be a great pick at this price. There's 5. Who else am I missing? I know there's at least one other important one to talk about. There's so many options in here that I can't even, it's not popping out to me. Oh, well, going to have to miss it. All right, we're already down to Oscar Allen, who will play a very important role as probably the number 1 forward for West Coast, maybe number 2, but he'll be the Kennedy replacement in the side, more or less. Very important piece for them this year. And so far, he's been good in the preseason. Looks like he's fit and raring to go, which is good. And then McLean I've got in here as well, who played some midfield time again for the Dogs. We've seen him score well in the past through the final series. And once again, we're talking about Treloar and Bailey Smith injured at the moment or interrupted preseasons. And you've got Dunkley who's left. So this spells a lot of opportunity for McLean, who could return a lot of money at this price. I think he's a very good pick to select here. But you could also look at Ben King coming off the ACL, or even Bruce, who is apparently training in defense. So if he gets a spot in their side as a defender, one to look at. And then, rookies are placeholders. Drury is one of the ones that's actually stood out for North in the preseason as well. So he could potentially be a pick. But yeah, that's the team and kind of the alternatives. It's meant to be pretty quick, this one. Just give you the quick update, who you could look at, who am I more favoring and not. Just to kind of help you get started with your first side if you haven't been thinking about it. But then as the preseason goes on, I'm sure you'll update your side 1,000 times from here. And I know mine will change a lot as more preseason reports come in and as we get to see some of those practice games before round 1 teams are announced. But thank you for joining me for this video. It was great having you here. If you've got any questions, leave them down below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Peace.